In 3D printing, you've got equipment, you've got material, and then you have modeling. Modeling tools like the one you see on my background, which is Fusion 360. Now, why do we care about the proper selection of a modeling tool? Now, modeling tools are based in different logics and operate on different principles to achieve pretty much similar results. The main two modeling softwares you use here is Blender and it is Fusion. Now, Fusion is a parametric model. What does that mean? In very simple terms, it's using strict math to represent geometry. So a sphere is going to be a sphere. The difference with Blender is using a mesh geometry, which means a sphere is not going to be really a sphere, but a trapezoid, which is going to be approximating a sphere by increasing the number of triangle faces that you use on your model. Now, this will affect the quality, the result of your print, and may create the necessity for you to do a lot more sanding, filling, priming. This difference in the technologies, however, works in the reverse. If you want to do a very complicated surface geometry, if you want to achieve very intricate designs, Blender is far superior because it is really built for sculpting, whereas Fusion really is not that friendly to sculpt things. Now, once you learn to model, this is a very simple design I made to hold some scissors I had and some other tools. You can find similar designs like this on MakerWorld and even better than this on MakerWorld and other repositories. But really, modeling is the other big leg of this science you should get accustomed to. Now, I will give you two examples of how you can model a simple sphere on both Blender and Fusion. I will give you an example as to how they appear on your slicer to drive home the differences between the quality, the surface quality of the item in between those two modeling softwares. Now, if I were to give you a tip, I would probably say to you, you should start with Fusion because Fusion gives better model surface qualities unless you increase the number of triangles by a very, very wide margin. It is, I think, a better tool to start getting accustomed with modeling. Um, but Blender is a superior modeling software for organic shapes, for faces, for anything really that isn't strictly dimensions and curves, because this doesn't really require Blender. You can model it, I would say, even better with Fusion than you would do with Blender, and a lot more easy and a lot more easier to do so. So you've got modeling, you've got Fusion, you've got Blender. Let's get into Fusion and Blender and let's see how both of them render differently.
And here, guys, is Fusion 360. We're gonna be designing a couple of spheres for you to see how we can design a basic shape using 2-3 different workflows. Don't worry, it's gonna be really fast. Now, to give you a very short introduction, here you see your building plane. Here the view is at an angle. You can check the angle here, seeing this cube. This allows you to orient yourself, but for the most part, you can kind of intuit your angle very easily. You can press the middle uh, mouse key and kind of grab onto this plane and navigate a little bit. You can choose with your left key, open up a window almost like you do in any other application. And with the right key, you can open up a certain menu that has different tools. Now, obviously, when you right click on an item, you will open up relevant tool panels. Now, Let's create a sphere. First of all, you go into your design workspace, create, create a sphere. You see here the tooltip, it gives you what it does exactly. So we're gonna choose the create sphere. We're gonna choose a plane. We're gonna choose a point, and here you see it a small toolbox. It describes what it is. It describes the diameter. Let's set the diameter to 40 millimeters, and also gives you the type of operation, whether that's a joint, cut, or new body. In this case, it's just a new body, a diameter, and you've got your first sphere. Very, very easily. Now, the second way we can create a basic sphere, we go into create sketch. You pick a plane. It doesn't really, for such a simple shape, it doesn't really matter, but when you go into more advanced things, it's actually very relevant for you to pick the right plane to help you with assembling. So you select your plane, then we take the center diameter tool, and I'm gonna cheat a little bit here. I'm gonna put 40. That's the diameter of the circle, but to kind of show you how you can do multiple workflows, we're gonna pick a line tool. We're gonna take a line through the diameter, and then we're gonna finish our sketch. Here, now we are again in our create design workspace. We're gonna go under the solid, we're gonna pick the revolve tool. We're gonna pick one of the two sketches, the sketch planes. And here you see the profile, it's selected and it is highlighted. And then we're gonna select the axis. And the axis is the line we used before. And now we have, you see here the angle, we don't really care as much about that. And now we have our second ball. That's the second way you can create a basic sphere on Fusion 360. And here, the third one is we go under create form. You see now the form menu. Now here you have multiple shapes. You've got the quad ball, which can be very useful, but you also have the sphere here. So once again, we pick a plane, we pick a point, and here we have the diameter and the longitudinal and latitudinal faces. Now, why is that important? The form mode creates shapes that can kind of approximate how you would create a shape on Blender. It's not nearly as good in sculpting as it is in Blender, but for instance, if you wanted to create something that looks like a pebble, you can create a sphere like that one. Now you can choose individual places, individual faces of that body. You can go under the modify. This gives you this small tooltip. I will not go over this entire tooltip because there are a lot more and better people in describing the tooltip. But what you can do is you press on this center point and you kind of drag your mouse to the right and it shrinks it, and maybe you want to move it a little bit to the inside, and maybe you twist it a little bit here, so you change it a little bit, and you can easily see that we went from a sphere, a perfect sphere, to something that looks like an almost pebble. We could have really not done anything of this, and it would be a third sphere. But just to give you an idea how you can do some shape manipulation in a very basic way on Fusion 360, but Blender is a lot more advanced than Fusion 360. So we press finish form, and these are three spherical shapes, really two simple spheres plus a pebble, a spherical pebble that you can create on Fusion 360. Now, this was a very short, very fast introduction, but you can build upon this to do more complicated shapes, because really complicated shapes, what are they? They are really just an agglomeration of a lot of simpler shapes and simpler steps. So that's it for Fusion. And here we've got Blender. If you want, again, I'm not very experienced with Blender, so cut me some slack. You go into your general, you right click, delete whatever it is. You can also change your box to a sphere, but let's make it super easy. You then go here to add, mesh, UV sphere, and here you've got your sphere. Now, what you can do here, and what I wanted for you to see, you see this sphere isn't really a sphere, but a bunch of rectangles. And that is what I was saying at the beginning of this video. You have a surface that is really it's approximating a sphere, but this can be relevant to your post-processing care. You may have to do a little more sanding if you need to do a sphere. Now, in this case, for a very simple sphere, what we could do is add a modifier, a generate, that's the subdivision surface, just increase it to, and you can barely see that it is smooth or not. Let's leave it at 0, and then we would press apply, and that would be that. Now, because we haven't really done anything, it doesn't really apply. Now, if we wanted to 3D print this easily, we can export it into an STL format, which will my desktop. I will choose Sphere Blender, and we export the STL, and we are finished with this. Now, I'm not as experienced with Blender, so I will refrain from uh, uh, giving you food for thought. I'm far more experienced in Fusion, but this is an important thing to see, because if you care about sanding after your printing, then this could be an issue. And to drive home the point, let's just add a UV sphere. We go from object mode to sculpt mode. Now, again, I will not go through all of them because I'm not experienced in Blender, not at all. But I will give you an idea of how it is how easy it is. You can just pick a tool, okay, and start doing things, and you can already see it's changing the shape of the sphere now. The how much it has to do with the weight of your brush, and really the number of your various of your triangles, because essentially striking the triangles, you can do a lot of things really. And yeah, you wouldn't be very, all those things I'm doing, they're almost like I'm working with my hand. This is really a random shape, by the way. This isn't something I thought about this. I just do this touchy feely. You wouldn't be that easy for you to do with Fusion. So if you are doing sculpting and you want to create some weird things, like this looks like a very weird stone, or like, I don't know, a new age Pokemon, maybe the face. Blender can be really good at this, and it's very intuitive. So if you are not really good with hard math, with it doesn't really, it stops you from expressing yourselves. This can actually be a very good tool. So this is exactly how you can easily sculpt something in Blender, and you see just how easier it is to be able to do sculpting on Blender versus in Fusion. Now you can export it in the same way that we did it on our last very basic sphere, and that is basically how you can do two different shapes in Blender. And here we kind of see the issue or the difference in a very fine picture between Blender and Fusion. That pebble was made using Fusion, and you see the surface is pretty much smooth. That is due to the way the software works, and that for Fusion you've got really mathematics that describe the surface. Whereas with the Blender sphere, this part right here, and I've used a white filament because white helps you see the shades a little bit better. You see, it's basically uh, it's almost like a disco ball. It's a lot of rectangles that are approximating a sphere. If you wanted to create something spherical um, with Blender, you might have to do a little bit of sanding. Now, as I have said in the video, you can increase the subdivisions to eliminate this problem or to make it even smaller. This is quite an extreme example, but why am I using this? If you have a complicated design and a large piece, a large statue, for instance, you may have to think about subdividing certain areas and leaving other areas unsubdivided to manage the size of your file. Because what you do, if you increase your subdivisions, you essentially have a lot of mesh points and a lot of surfaces, and this can increase the size of your file and the speed of and the requirements to deal and to uh, process the information. So this is something to bear in mind. Those two softwares are the modeling backbone of your 3D printing journey. There are others. I will not go into detail simply because I'm not even very experienced in all of them. I'm barely experienced in Fusion, I think, and I'm barely scratching the surface of Blender. And but this is an important part to know, important distinctions, because they can really allow you to identify problems and failures or things you ought to correct if you want to increase the quality of your prints. And that is for us, guys. We've went over Blender, we've went over Fusion, we saw how they impact the quality of your print, and therefore how they can downstream impact how much work you will need to do. If you've liked what you heard and you want to stay tuned, press like and subscribe, share this video with others, and thank you for your time. I'm Thanos, and this is the end of the video. Peace out.